My name is Onyx Magno, and I'm a current MBA student with the Millsaps L School of Business. Over the winter holidays, I was able to attend the study abroad trip to Merida, Mexico with some fellow classmates and one of our great professors. This trip was all about learning the history of the Yucatan Peninsula and broadening our knowledge of international business. We stayed at Casa Millsaps in the middle of Merida, Mexico, and here's a layout of what we did as a class. To begin, our professor gave us a tour of the city where we were able to see everyday life of the local citizens. We were able to see the rich history of the town and also its economic progress. Our first field trip was just a 10-minute walk from Casa Millsaps to the Governor's Palace Museum. This museum not only housed the government officials' offices, but it also was a free walkthrough full of paintings, all done by a local artist. This was a great way to start our class, as we were able to see how the government opened their spaces to the public, and we were able to visualize the history of the area through each painting. Our next trip was to Uxmal in the middle of the Yucatan jungle. Here, we were able to see the amazing structures that the ancient Mayans built themselves and how they were able to sustain themselves in everyday life. It was really amazing to see how much of a mystery it is, still to this day, how the ancient Mayans arrived and built the city and how they left. But my favorite part about this trip was seeing the ball game structure, which was a part of one of my favorite animated movies as a child called El Dorado. Next, we visited the Hacienda Sotute de Peon. With this trip, we saw how the residents of the Yucatan lived in the 1850s. While this trip was extremely educational, we were also able to see exactly how they lived back then. We trekked through the hacienda farms by a mule, just like the workers did, and we were even able to take part in the building of their cash crop. This is where we learned about the Yucatan's version of an industrial revolution. But the best part about this trip by far was getting to swim in an underwater cave called a cenote. One of our last trips of the class also happened to be my favorite, and it was our trip to Celestune. Here you go by boat through the mangrove forest, being led by a local tour guide. And because they have such an immense knowledge of the area, they were able to point out the things that we couldn't see with our naked eye. They would point out the alligators in the water and the hundreds of huge bird nests in the tree. The most beautiful part of this trip was being able to see the thousands of flamingos that only come during these winter months. In the classroom at Casa Millsaps, before every field trip, we were able to learn why and when a lot of these things happened. Then when we had free time, we would go visit the local beaches and walk around the city. To learn more about this trip, go to millsapsglobal.com.